Sometimes a modern monument can tell a story that's ancient. That's exactly what's happening in Hyderabad, India. There's this massive statue, and it connects us directly to a saint from the 11th century. So let's get into it. This is the story of Sri Ramanujacharya and how his thousand-year-old message of equality inspired, well, one of the world's tallest statues. Okay, so it all kicks off with this number, 216. Just 216. What on earth could that mean? Well, that's the height in feet of this absolutely incredible monument. It's called the Statue of Equality, and it was inaugurated back in 2022. And get this, it's one of the tallest metallic sitting statues on the entire planet. That is huge. But that just raises an even bigger question, right? Who was this person? Who was the philosopher, the reformer, whose ideas were so powerful that they literally echoed for 1,000 years to inspire a tribute like this?
So that's our monumental question. To really get what this statue is all about, we've got to go back and understand the man himself, the saint.
All right, let's journey back in time, about 1,000 years. We're leaving the modern monument behind for a moment to meet the historical figure and dig into his totally groundbreaking philosophy. So who was Ramanujacharya? Well, he was born way back around 1017 CE in what we now call Tamil Nadu, and he lived a remarkably long life, 120 years. In that time, he became one of the most influential thinkers in all of Hindu philosophy. But, and this is the key part as you're about to see, he wasn't just some theologian locked away with his books. Oh no, he was a radical social reformer who actually put his ideas into practice. Okay, so at the very core of his teaching is this philosophy called Vishishtadvaita. Yeah, I know, it's a bit of a mouthful, but trust me, the concept behind it is revolutionary. It basically translates to qualified non-duality. Now, what does that mean? It's the idea that, yes, we're all part of one single divine reality, but, and this is the qualified part, we also get to keep our own unique individual identities. To really grasp how radical this was, you have to picture the world he was living in. The dominant philosophy at the time basically taught that the material world we see is just an illusion, and that only a select few could achieve salvation, and only through intense scholarly study. Well, Ramanuja came along and completely flipped that on its head. He argued that no, the world is real, and every single one of us, every individual soul, is a real and distinct part of a personal, loving God. And that meant the path to salvation wasn't just for the scholars. It was for everyone, through something called Bhakti, or devotion. So here's the absolute crucial point, the real takeaway. He basically democratized spirituality. Think about it. In a time of super rigid social and caste hierarchies, he stood up and said your status, your background, where you were born, none of it matters. It was no longer a barrier. The path to the divine, he said, was open to absolutely anyone with a devoted heart. And here's the thing, he didn't just talk the talk. He really walked the walk. He took this philosophy and turned it into a full-blown revolution of compassion. I mean, he put his philosophy into practice in ways that were truly radical for his time. He actively defied the caste rules by literally opening temple doors to everyone. He even gave a new, dignified name to communities that were oppressed. He called them Tirukalatar, or divine-born, to really drive home that they had inherent spiritual worth. For him, sacred knowledge wasn't some secret to be hoarded by the privileged. It was a light that was meant to shine on all. There's this one story that I think just captures his spirit perfectly. After years and years of searching, Ramanuja finally gets what he's been looking for. His teacher gives him a sacred mantra, a super powerful secret phrase that was said to guarantee salvation. But there was a catch, a huge one. The teacher gives him this grave warning. Keep this mantra to yourself. If you share it, you will be condemned for all eternity. But, he adds, anyone who hears it from you will be saved. So just imagine that. He's faced with this impossible choice. Save his own soul or save the souls of everyone else. So what do you think he did? Did he hesitate? Not for a second. He walked straight from his teacher's place to the local temple and just started climbing, all the way to the very top of its tower, high above the town square below. And from up there, in what has to be the ultimate act of spiritual defiance, he shouted the sacred mantra for every single person he heard. Men, women, people from every caste, every background. He just gave it away. He offered them all the key to salvation that he had just been given.
Now, you can imagine his teacher was furious, but when he confronted Ramanuja, his logic was just so simple and so profound. He basically said, look, if condemning my one soul is the price for saving all of these people, then that's a bargain I would gladly make. I mean, wow, that incredible act of selfless compassion, that's really the essence of his legend.
Yeah, an act like that, it doesn't just fade away into history. It creates a legacy, one that lasts for 1,000 years. So you look at this timeline, and there's this massive gap, right? Nearly 1,000 years between his life and the inauguration of this statue. So how did his influence manage to bridge that immense span of time?
Well, his ideas became a cornerstone of what's known as the Bhakti movement. Think of it like a huge wave of devotional faith that just swept across India. His whole emphasis on having a personal, loving relationship with God, one that was accessible to everybody, it went on to inspire countless saints and poets for generations. We're talking about celebrated figures like Kabir, Mirabai, and Tulsidas.
And his major writings, things like the Sri Bhashya and his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, they basically became the blueprints for this new path of devotion. These weren't just stuffy, dense philosophical texts. They were practical guides that people have studied and followed for centuries. And that's how he really cemented his influence deep within Hindu tradition. And all of that brings us right back where we started, to that 216-foot monument in Hyderabad. Because now we finally have the context to understand what it's all about. So why call it the Statue of Equality? Well, it's pretty clear now, isn't it? Ramanujacharya was one of history's great champions for that very idea. The statue commemorates his lifelong fight against discrimination. It embodies his core teaching that all of humanity is one family, Vasudeva Kutumbakam. It's this powerful modern reminder of a message that is absolutely timeless and universal. And that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Ramanujacharya lived 1,000 years ago, but his core message, man, it feels more relevant today than ever. His life and his work, they don't just ask a question of the past. They ask a question directly to us, right here, right now. 1,000 years later, what does equality truly mean to us? And maybe more importantly, how do we put that ideal into practice in our own lives?